So I just would like to thank the University of Wisconsin-Madison, he is really our partners from the University of Madison in all of our connecting to the Sami people. And so I would like to throw over to Thomas to introduce her.
I'm so grateful to get to be here, and thank you so much for this hospitality, and thanks to the cooks for this wonderful, wonderful meal. And I'm really glad to be a small part of reconnecting Harald Gaski to this community. I was here back in 2018, and that was, I think, very inspiring for the Sami presenters, and also I know that began this process of exploring how the Menominee Nation and the Sami Nation, which is spread over 4 countries, could find ways to work together, to share, and Harald is at the Sami School at the Sami College, Sami University College, and it has been a really great helper for Sami people, and a great Professor of Sami Literature and researcher, and knows all kinds of Sami proverbs book right now. So I'm just so glad. I think we've known each other for 30 years now. So I'm very, very glad to introduce Harald Gaski.
Thank you for the introduction. It's really good to be back again. I hope the collaboration between the college here and the Sami University will prosper, so that might actually bring me back another time again. And then definitely just only as an professor, because the plan is at least to retire after this year. So I'm happy that this basically happened now. It was also a change, moving from the University of Tromsø, the actual name of that university now is the Arctic University of Norway. It was they are really emphasizing on the research in the Arctic regions, and also promoting themselves as the Arctic International University. So moving from the very big university to a small, more or less tribal college was I guess, in the university as a step down, but in the indigenous world that was a step up, moving from a majority institution and into an institution that is run by the Sami, by the indigenous people themselves. So I think I'll start with saying something in Sami. I guess it's a poem by who was a very good friend of mine. He passed away in 2001, but he, in addition to being a Sami poet, he also was a Sami philosopher and really a voice for the indigenous peoples. And I think this brief poem is very, it's an epitome of the connection that the indigenous peoples have, and the connectedness we feel to the land, to the waters, to the history, to the generations that have been before us. So, and also, in my view, this is my acknowledgement to the land that I'm standing on and visiting, a land that has been inhabited by your people for a long, long, long time, and then being a guest here is an honor, representing another indigenous people. another part of the world. So the poem goes like this. Ula o elli magianai, jo saabumis, pelko ossumis, evisot paraidun totta. Yeah, please. So a brief poem like that actually then gets to the core of what it means to be an indigenous person in this land, on this earth, and to keep up the connection to Mother Earth. Just briefly, Tom mentioned that the Sami area covers 4 countries, and on this map it covers the whole of Kola Peninsula in Russia too. And traditionally, Sami covered more or less the whole of Kola Peninsula too on the Russian side. But now it's more the population is concentrated to a small town called DuBois. But traditionally, this is the Sami area. And you can see from this map the 10 different dialects or languages, because not all the dialects are mutually understandable, so, but the ones closest to each other, they are understandable. So, like the red one and the green one up there, South Sami and North Sami, the differences comparable to the difference between English and German. So, which means they have some words in common that aren't mutually understandable. So, and if you speak about whether we speak about 10 different languages or 10 different dialects, depends very much on what approach you choose. The linguist would speak about 10 different languages, while a Sami politician, I hope, would emphasize the things that connect the people and not the things that really bring them apart. So if you focus on what is common in the Sami, then we speak about dialects and have one language in common. But because the history and the cultural traits, the proverbs of the way, they also resemble each other in the different Sami areas. And then we also have this self-presentation thing in indigenous methodologies today, that you actually position yourself where you are and what you want to be. So I could of course speak about my professorship if I was speaking for an academic crowd, but in most connections I rather speak about where I come from. So I am a river Sami. I grew up on the river. I was born at the place where I am living now. I moved back from the town of Tromsø to Tana, and a little village called Silk. And the interesting thing about Silk is that actually it means the little sacrificial stone. So Seidi, that is part of the Sami spirituality and was regarded to be a powerful force or source or medium, whatever you would call it, that the Sami could bring some offerings to, but also it was a medium that you could contact only through your thoughts as well. So to keep the connection to the land and to the powers that are all around us. My lineage then is back, mentioned there both my mother's name and my father's name, but nowadays I'm more known as Silka Harald, so Harald from Silka, from the place Silka. And there aren't that many people from there, so there's only one Harald, so that also works. The Daniel Heath Justice is a Native American scholar, this Cherokee, and he has written a book about why indigenous literatures matter. And in that book he also has this mentioning how we present us to others in the indigenous world, that you actually, you very seldom only tell your name, but you tell who your parents or grandparents are, where you are from, what line of family you belong to. So, and of course that relationship then is the best guarantee for your connection to the area that you are from. So like the white people in the US and also, well, especially in the US where they move around all the time, that is also pointing at the risk of them really getting disconnected to your homeland, to the movements we do. So that's the danger of becoming commodified, that the identity becomes commodified and separated because it obligations to king and community. So, and that is my idea with this talk, that I'll try to, mainly I will present the Sami views and values as the title of the talk was, but also connect it a little bit to what is going on within indigenous research today and what we are focusing on in that research. And like you see here, for the students who are going to visit Sapmi, so it's in a way much easier for the Sami people there because they are Sami and they are all related to each other. So the level is there, the Sapmi, the Sami term for Sami, both covers the local and the national level. While you in the US and in Canada you have three dimensions: the tribal connection as the first one, and then the national level where you are speaking about the Native American nation of maybe Alaskans or whatever. But that is that you get that national level there because you have the tribes are not all representing the same culture. But the new thing is then this indigenous connectedness, global indigenous connectedness, so that's a global connection, which Sami have been very instrumental in establishing from the 1970s onwards. And now back to this map again, just to show you how Sami land or the Sami area was divided into small sidas, as the term is in Sami. And the point is that every sida should have some water within it, so either a river or a lake. So water has been very important also in the division of the land. So this sida that was like a working unit within the tribe, or it also could represent the clan within the tribe. And the administration was consensus-based, co-management, and also co-responsibility. So when it came to resource management, especially, but also the self-determination that the sidas then. The neighboring sidas met when if they needed to distribute the land in different ways, or if there were any controversies between the sidas, so the sidas made up between themselves, so in respect for the land and also for the people. So, and then since we are both are forest people and river people, I thought I'd spend some time on this because Mietsi means forest, but Mietsi also is, because Mietsi is the noun and then Mietsi is a verb. So Mietsi means that to make use of the abundance of resources that is in Mietsi. So like berry picking, hunting, whatever you do, so you get your living, you make your livelihood through the access. or you did that in the traditional society. So Mjätsi actually, that's the problem with today's word. We have all these dictionaries that you look up the word forest and what is that in Sami, and you find Mjätsi, and we think they are equal in that sense. But Mjätsi, then if you go the other way, the explanation of Mjätsi would be much longer and much more than only being forest. Like I know it is also with other indigenous peoples that our terms aren't really that easy to just make a word translation into another language. And also this to find subsistence or to manage to make a living, which then is vehicle and having to do with the vehicle which are the nouns. But then that also contains so much more than just the actual thing, that the work you do in order to, because it has to do with your connection to the surroundings, the environment, how you behave, and if you have done your duties to the day and so on. So how successful you are in your hunt or fishing or whatever. So, and because the reindeer and the white reindeer back in time was so important for the Sami, so actually the etymologists think that the big word comes from Bjärbo, which then means meat. So the reindeer meat was so important for the Sami that actually that became the term for to manage. Like I said, I belong to the river Sami, but even for us, the reindeer very important, very much as means of transportation during winter time. Because in summertime we could use the river to transport things, but then so the salmon have been important, but also the meat that the reindeer represent. And then this is not going to be a language course, but actually these are some of the terms that are important, even in Sami teaching, to explain to the students, the young students of today, because the way of life is so rapidly changing that several of the young Sami don't have traditional connection to the environment, to the land, and they aren't really taught these things at home anymore. So the paradox is that actually the universities then come in as to teach the students of today what they actually should have been taught at home. But also the universities are changing, so I don't know really how long this explanations, this kind of explanations and approaches they can last among our people. But you can easily see the connection between being to hunt and to fish, and the other thing that you ask for. Because all the activities were done in a very humble way. So you more or less ask the river to be kind with you, so you get a fish, you get salmon in order to feed your family. And then so you are asking the river to get some fish. And the same with the hunting too, that the wild animal you are hunting is, you know it has its own soul and has its own family usually to care for. So taking that animal's life does something to the animal family. So therefore you have to explain why you are doing the thing you are to do. So asking for permission in that sense. And I think this is the second last of the language course for you. But then if you think of the dwelling place, the teepee, for example, the Sami dwelling place resembles the round teepee. And then you have the hearth in the middle of the teepee, in Götti, and Götti then surrounds the hearth. So you have this circle lots of circles outside of each other. So Skiljo then is the yard outside the house, and then this Mjätse that really doesn't surround the dwelling place like that, but it is, you can at least imagine it as surrounding the well. And then the island, that's the wild animals, the predators and so on. So that's, you actually don't only go there in order to hunt, but Mjätse is a place where you find your berries and the other things you need. So this always extending circles is an idea behind this kind of thing. And then moving on to Edler, because this is also interesting. This is actually language philosophy. So like Wittgenstein, the language philosopher, love this idea of how the connection between the concept and the practical use of that concept. So Edler means not only Sami language, but language in general. So Sami Edler is Sami language. But the other meaning is also the snare, or the trap, a snare to catch arguments, to browsing. And then to check the snare or the trap for catch is here. But that also means to learn a language. And the Wittgenstein thing here is that in order to really be able to catch anything in the snare or in the trap, is that you have been a good student and learned to build the trap in the correct way or put up the snare in the correct way. So then you get something. So in order to really survive as a traditional person in the traditional community, you still need to pay attention to your teachers, to your elders, and learn to do things right. But in this politicized world of today, it's also important to know language, and not only language, but languages. So Schwitzer, who is one of our classical Sami poets, he used this concept of Gen to really warn the young ones about, inspire them to learn the majority language in a very good manner, to learn the good well, in order to be prepared not to be trapped by language, but rather to use language as a force yourself to trap the majority, to trap the majority of politicians with language. So it also represents a play in words at the same time as it is really something crucial and important. We visited the camp today, and we were talking about the close connection between the buffalo and the birds. So a lot of birds that have been away, hasn't been there for quite a while, they have returned again because of the buffalo and all the shit that buffalo produces. So we actually see lots of birds within that little herd or flock of buffaloes. So, and birds have really always been important for the Sami. They are either messengers or they are there for the beauty. And like this blue throat, it's the Sami very early found out, especially the Sami from my region, we have been very occupied with language all the time. So Edler, let's see, Edler, which is the name of the bird in my region, means the language fixed. And that means that this bird is so clever that it can imitate other birds. And it does that especially during mating season. So it has a lot of fun making all these false connections and the mating sounds misleading the birds. So it's really a trickster, and why it does that, I don't know. but at least the Sami had found out about that, and they liked it. So I'm sure they have made up a lot of short stories and you know, like stories about the Edler. But it also has a beautiful song, singing, so it's also the bellbird and nightingale with mountain lands, and of course. So, but just as a reminder for the Sami, so again combining the beauty of the beautiful bird, the beautiful singing of the bird, and also the message that it gives. And the joy it gives, not the least. Because language is so much, and that is very often forgotten, especially in the universities where very heavily focus on language means of communication. So, which is just one part of language. But it is a tool, it is a medium. It definitely represents a lot of values. We can find cultural values in language, in linguistic expressions, wordview, and also then of course rhetorics and display of verbs. So it was used for amusement and entertainment quite a lot. But then also of course its closeness that it represents. It's a medium for expressing emotions, poetry, but also identity. So, and on the opposite side, then the lack of identity, and also language can be used exclusively. It is, you can show how clever you are with language, but it can also be used as in an excluding way. It's the ones who know the language, the ones who don't know. So like back home, about half of the Sami population don't speak the Sami language anymore because of assimilation and forced northernization, certification, vinification, and desertification. So a huge part of Sami people have lost their language. So that can also then represent a power aspect that wants to still have the language in a way are viewed to be better off, or at least it may lead to some conflicts. And then now talking about different kinds of senses, and one of the senses is clear. And here is one of the corresponds to the title, because the Buddha means to hear something that it actually hears, but also to belong to a place. For example, Mongura Sete, I belong to Sete, that place, and where I'm living now. Or actually it can also let you belong to your spouse or partner. So there's a connection again between this listening, this hearing, and belonging. And Bulgarit then is as a sense then as Buddha. So then you are listening, and he actually heeded away. I don't know to what extent that is relevant for the spouse and partner, but at least the idea is that you listen to the messages you get from the environment, from birds, from animals. And so but in English it's more this longing, so belong, that belong to the place where you are from. So still having to do with emotions, but you don't hear the place as you do in Sami. And that's hearing in Sami is connected to the myth. The creator, when he or she created the people that would become the Sami people, the creator knew about all the hardships that the people would need. So in order to give the people some solace or comfort, the great creator took a beating and living heart of a 2-year-old reindeer cow, which is Uenkele in South Sami, Vuongal in North Sami. But at least that reindeer is to some extent a mythical reindeer. So that, especially because it sacrificed its heart to sort of the Sami to find its solace. So, and that is, the heart was then put in the middle of the earth. So the Sami, every time we felt our existence threatened, we could just lay our ear to the ground and listen for the heartbeats from below. And as long as the heart was still beating, that meant there would be a future for the Sami. So, and that goes back, all the way back to Edler. So therefore Edler, again, talking about the dictionary, means so much more than just the fear, because it mythically also connects you to the land. And this is defined in Sami poetry, in Sami art, represented in Sami poetry and art, and also to some extent in research. There aren't that many researchers dealing specifically with this topic, but I think it's also what we have quoted in the beginning. He made this book, Baby After Tom, the son of my father, based on the myth that the Sami are the descendants of the sun, and the other thing is that the earth is the mother. So for him it was also very crucial, very pivotal to manage to make both of the books, for the sun and the earth. Yes, and so telling another quote from this is actually just a quote from a presentation, an online presentation that is there in Berry again, and the title was History, Healing and Restoration. And I really fell in love with this idea of restoring, and more or less also restoring with that Y in brackets. So you combine to restore and to restoring. So restoring is a concept within literary scholarship. That's the way you retell a story with your own words. But then combining that restoring with restoring, you are repairing, bringing things back together again. I really found that charming and also challenging at the same time. So it is, and that's what we are doing for most of the indigenous peoples nowadays, because we need to stick to our traditional values, but we need to express them in new ways. And because the world has changed and there are new ways of communicating and acting together, so there are challenges, but we definitely need restoration. And in Sami, we're not Sami terms, but the South families, they sound the same, they are just different because of different orthographies. But there is a definite connection between the earth, the mother, and the river. And so all these terms in Sami have the same background, the same etymology, and they actually all mean something grand and great, big, important. So, which we then know the earth is important, the mothers are important, and the rivers are like the veins in our body which brings blood around. So the rivers definitely are the life-giving water for us all. So this is the other book by Nils Aslak and Jansen, and again this is written in an endearing language, so the correct spelling according to the orthography would be Etnaton, but then this is more put in a childish language to really show the intimate connection there is between you and the land. And even this book, which is a wonderful book, which has been translated into English, but they brought even the English publisher, American publisher actually, which was decided to keep the Sami neighborhood so that it should point to the land, because this is an epic about the land, how important land is, and about the forced movement, displacement actually, that the Swedish authorities did towards the Sami because of the damming of big rivers in the northern part of Sweden, and they wanted to produce electricity. So that happened from actually the 1930s, but especially from the 1950s onwards. So like the Julia, one of the big rivers there has 80 dams in the river, so there's no chance that any salmon can go up that river. Nearing the end, not hopefully the end, but at least the end of the talk. So I was just going to let you know what these things that I've been presenting to you now is the things that I've tried to knowledge that I've tried to disseminate to my students, and the sort of courses where you find these views and stories are the Malmias, Ulkus and Gulkus. Because Juegan is the traditional Sami way of singing. It's a vocal genre. And I also have been used to tell the old myth and the combination of reciting, singing, chanting, and then the reading or the uttering of poetry. And Tom mentioned the proverbs, and this is one of the main proverbs we say in Sami, that it covers that. But it tells about the Sami as migrating people, so belonging to migrating culture. It's better to be on the move than stay put at one place, as the way it was translated before. But at least the point is that it's better to be on the move. So while you find the English equivalent is the total opposite, because that comes from an agrarian culture, so where they don't do it. So home sweet home, or my home is my castle, expressions like that, which are quite different from the Sami. So when I made an English version of this book, and this book, by the way, will be out later this year in an extended version. Tom and I are working on the book, so it will have some additional proverbs to it, and probably another title too. But this was the title that I used for the English one, because I couldn't really call the book "Home is My Castle" or something like that, because I couldn't cover the content at all. The kind of ship that never passed anchor, of course, it's also about that we are constantly moving. So then the ability to read, and that is what we are, I've been speaking about actually the whole time here, that for in an indigenous setting, to read is not only to be able to read the text, but actually to read nature, to read images, people, and not the music, the signs, like weather, and deep, which I don't know how to translate, but deep are the messages that nature brings to you, either to birds or animals. So again, it is this, like you say, the Sami verbs, those are the terms that it means to advise, to give advice, to improvise, to describe, and to listen, so you find your way forward. And this is, so words, sounds, images, they go together and represent values, and also represent the holistic way of viewing life and your surroundings. This is the membrane of a Sami drum, a lady drum, a shaman drum that was used, and it's a tall one, so it's actually lacking a piece there. And at the same time, it also represents the cover of Nisastas which, and then it has a stone figure in the middle, representing then the view that the Sami or the descendants of the sun, and all the figures there are Sami gods and goddesses, but also animals that are important in the Sami realm. So they, and of course this was also the medium that the lady, the shaman, used in order to predict the future, and the outcome of the hunt, for example, and other things. When they also, when the shaman went to find advice or get information how to cure people, then he or she would be using the term for that. So to be able to read the signs of the drum also was a very important competence, and it's still at least represents the competence of reading the visuals. So like this, and these are the two that pictures, slides, and this is the radio heard where it's a pencil drawing. You can see the two angles here a bit away from the rest of the bird. These are also from the Sassafraglia books, and here you have the pencil drawing, and here you have the same bird represented in words. And what he did here is that he has chosen, for Sami is very rich on terms for reindeer, for salmon, also predators like wolf and wolverine, but especially for the reindeer and salmon, and also some of the sea animals. But these are then reindeer represented by different terms for the reindeer, and then the text in italics are the moving sounds of the moving migrating reindeer. And at the top there on the left, you can see two animals that are the same, or representing at least the same animals as you can see on the previous slide, these two individuals there. So again, this animal, Nerelochus aeginus, is the animal that likes to keep a bit away, aside from the flock. So in a way, both the lady, the shaman, or the artist that is watching these sort of people from the side and see what's going on. So and here at the bottom, those are two verbs, Raulgat and Orgui, which means those are the ones that have gotten away from the herd, or they have been lost from the herd. So these are the words that the reindeer, the watcher of the flock or the herd will do in order to drive the animals back into the herd. So you get a whole life philosophy represented in 2 pages of a text that actually isn't a poem in the sense of poem, but still it is in a book of poetry, and it can be read as poem because the artist himself has read this and hear it on a CD, and the way he reads it, it really sounds as poetry. So for him it was important that Sami language is so rich. And it is so beautiful to listen to that. It is everything in Sami is actually poetry. And on the other hand, it also represents then the view of life, that the beautiful life and the beauties of life, which then keeps you happy and hopeful for the future.
Luann, for coming and sharing with us some of your culture. And I'm sure as you heard what he was talking about, you could find similarities between the Sami culture and our cultures as well. Some of the things that I picked up were the way that we introduce ourselves. Many times we not only say who we are, but who our family is. Also talk about clans, then clan systems. And a very important theme of self-determination, how that's something that we value and that we work towards. Also, in regard to the hunting, how there's the respect for the land and the animals, and asking that permission rather than the thought of just taking it. So, and I really like the restoration or restoration. I thought that's really good. So does anyone here have any comments or questions that you'd like to ask?
I think in the study the language is the same with other indigenous language and Mixteco, but when you talk, how do you learn, the student learning is imagine or figure or something, after the sound, after the word. They have word, sound, imagine. Okay? The learning is the object, figure, after the sound, finish your word. Because for us it's more important the sound. Because the major is hearing the words when you learning other language, English, Spanish or something. The first step is the words in relation with the sounds. In trying to relation step in step. But when you children with 2 years or 2 years, immediately mention 3. I don't know in the language 3, but my language is ha. The children ha. When they talk at the forest, it's cool. When they talk at the mountain, it's cool. It's the sound, immediately the children understand. The relation, after write the word, the relation, in English, Spanish, French, what you do. But I think it's very different. The language was education and indigenous education language. Because all the time talking the forest, natural, because it's part of the root. The identity, the land. I think this is when you talk at everything indigenous is more global. Yes, it's more global because they have many connections. Before where you live in Norway, in South Africa, in South America, the connection is part very important. For me, thank you for showing the language, because the relation is very important for your community.
Thank you, Dawson. They're very good points. Jennifer?
Comment and question. I really like the complexity of identity that you shared. That it's place-based and situational, and we all have a name that we call ourselves based on the relationship and who we're talking to. So I know for the College of Menominee Nation, for the Menominee Indian Reservation, and as we learn language and build our identities to who we are, that the depth of who we are changes. So we actually call ourselves like the Kayes Mamache Tolip, or the original movers. And I was curious, what you call yourself in your language with your people and what that means.
Yeah, that's it sounds actually different from a lot of other indigenous or people with the concept of ourselves. Because Sapmelash means, the area is Sapmi, and from that you just add to a Lush that makes it into a new concept, a new word. So Sapmelash is an inhabitant of Sapmi. But then the myth about Sapmi is that it actually means the land found, because there was this ice age for I don't know how long. So everything was covered by ice. So no people actually could survive in that area. So everyone has migrated into the area. But the Sami are regarded to be among the first ones getting into the area. So therefore, obviously according to the myth, the Sami had that idea of land that was made ready for them. So they went out looking for that land. And they were really long and strenuous journey, so they split up at least in two different branches and approached the land, one from the south and one from the north. According to the myth, but actually the myth is nowadays being proved right from etymological research and archaeological research. So there actually were two routes that the Sami followed to get to Sandland. But again, the myth tells that when those two peoples met, they had the languages that developed so differently that they actually didn't understand each other in the first place. So they were going to fight with each other, but then they recognized, you are my brother, you are my sister, so they didn't fight, but rather they were fought against all of these Trudies and the other intruders. So that's a very fascinating story and myth which historians never paid attention to, but now actually the archaeologists have started to say maybe there is something natural. And I was thinking also, in your comment about this, the words and how the words sound, I guess, because we have this yoy, the Sami tradition music, and you may actually yoy a person or an animal or an object without using any concrete word, but just a melody. So like the singing today, for me, I didn't catch any of the words, of course I don't know the language either, but still I was like listening to the Sami yoy in the sense that you get the message without hearing it. You don't need to know the words and you don't need to read the words, you can hear the words inside you. So, yes, thank you.
Your question? No? Anyone else?
Yeah. Well, I was listening and learning about your language and culture, and some of the words for hunting and gathering and the food. Don't mind. I wanted to introduce one of our chefs, Leah Husby. If she can talk a little bit about the meal. There's so much more going on here that's culturally significant than what we put up front. So, sorry, Leah. And thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. Did anybody else have any questions for the doctor before I want to take any of your time? The meal we put together today was drawing from some of our traditional foods, wild rice being the major one. But we also took influence from Francisco, whose family background is also from Mexico. So we thought with today being Cinco de Mayo, we would kind of fuse some of those traditions and flavors. One of our favorite things to do with the catering company is to try to show wild rice in some of its different forms. So today you saw it just steamed up like you would traditionally have a rice dish in the empanadas. That's pretty traditional, pretty commonplace. But then it also appeared in the cupcakes. We toast the wild rice and we grind it down until it's very fine like a flour. So the empanadas, back to those, featured the wild rice. We used ground bison and we did a chorizo cure on it, so it was like a chorizo spiced bison. We mixed that with the rice. There were beans and cheese in there. The salad was drawing from kind of some of our forest things, so we poured some dandelions, some creamy jelly. And then it was the spring mix. You had pickled nopales or pickled cactus. There was sweet corn that was grilled and radishes. And then the vinaigrette was in enchiote. Vinaigrette enchiote is a paste made from annatto seeds that's common to Yucatan Peninsula's culture. They use it a lot in their cooking of the veal as kind of a paste rub on that meat. So we took that idea and made it into a vinaigrette using maple syrup and some citrus. And then your cupcake was inspired by Mexican hot chocolate. So it had the toasted wild rice that was ground then into the flour. It finished with kind of some spice. If you comment to that, we have a little cayenne snuck in there. And then your drink was a take on agua fresca. And so we used hibiscus and we steeped that and then added some clove and cinnamon and a little citrus. So that was your drink.
That was very, very delicious. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. I just have a logistical piece. If you have not filled out the registration that's on the table, I'm not sure if you guys even have some over there. We had some. Please fill those out. There's a survey. Please fill that out. And there was a sign-in going around. I don't know how far that got, but if you have not signed in on the sign-in sheet, we ask you to do that as well. And with that, we'd like to give you a small token of appreciation for coming. So this is for you. It is a travel bag for your journey, as well as sweatshirt. And when you're looking at it, they give the blue guys. And then here's a small fan to pull you up. So thank you so much.